Hi, Mary Beth here, and I'm so glad you can join me in my kitchen tonight. Tonight's cook along is our unrolled cabbage rolls, and this is such a quick and easy recipe to get on the table for your family that tastes like takeout, but at a fraction of the cost. Doesn't take a whole lot of prep time, and you should be able to have it in front of your family to eat in about 30 minutes or so. So the prep time is about 15 minutes. The cook time is 20 minutes. Some of that you can overlap as you'll see me do here. And what I'm hoping to do also is to give you some quick tips to help you maneuver some of this a little more quickly than the way it might be outlined in the actual recipe. So you should have found the recipe in the party. And if not, I will also make sure it's included in the link below this video so that you have easy access to it. Alrighty, so we're actually going to start with, we need to put some onions and mushrooms through the food processor. So I've got a couple smaller onions here. I like onion, so the onions were kind of small, so I decided to go ahead and just do 2 of them. Okay, so I've got my onions in here, and we're going to go ahead and get it started. I'm using our Flex Plus, but again, you could use a knife, you could use a food chopper. This will hopefully just do it a little faster. And so let me get this thing going again. Oh, perfect. Okay, so we have our onions chopped. Then we're going to throw in some mushrooms. Beautiful. So again, you can use whatever you have, but you need a food processor. I do really like this one because it does so much more than processed foods. As usual, I forgot to make sure I had my prep bowls out and a scraper. All right, so we're going to just get our onions out of here, put them off to the side. One of the things that my chef husband has always taught me is that before you start cooking, try to have everything pulled together. So you'll see I've got things kind of lined up over here. At culinary school, they call that mise en place, which is, for us Americans, we're like, oh, French. And the French are like, yeah, it just means everything is in its place. So there is your French lesson for today. All right, so we have our onions. Ooh, those are powerful onions. I can smell them. And then we're going to throw in some mushrooms. So I've got my mushrooms over here in a towel, actually. A couple things to know about mushrooms. When you buy them from the store, it's a good idea to not rinse them out until you're going to use them, because otherwise they'll get just kind of nasty in your refrigerator. So if they're dirty and you just kind of really just want them cleaned off, don't wash them off. Use a clean, maybe a clean towel or something. I love these old cotton towels I have, and that should do the job for you just fine. But again, don't wet them, just brush any dirt off with the towel. Now, I chose to rinse them just before using them, but even then I put them in the towel, dried them off real well, because mushrooms have a pretty high water content. And so when you put them in your food and you cook them, they tend to get really, they make a lot of water in your food, and your food will get excuse me, runny, and you might not want it so runny. So there is my mushroom tip for you today. All right, let's put those down. All right, so we're going to just put our mushrooms in this other bowl. Then the last thing we're going to do is slice our cabbage. So again, if you don't have a food processor, use a knife, or if you have a good slicer, you could do it. Certainly our simple slicer is a good option if you happen to have that. But because I have this out, I'm going to go ahead and use it. I love this blade. It says no cheese. There's like a little cheese with a line through it. Don't try slicing cheese on this, I guess is what it's telling us. We're going to set that there. Put our lid back on. There we go. Okay. Set those guys off to the side. Right, honest truth, friends. If I didn't have this out, I would be doing this with a knife. But if you don't like using knives, this is a good alternative. And it is pretty darn quick. It is impressive though, and I would say if I was making like a ton of coleslaw or something, I would find this would be a huge time saver. So a couple things about this Flex Plus that I'm using since I have it out. I like to tell the story how my daughter and son-in-law, this came out just before they were moving to Uganda, like literally 2 weeks before they moved to Uganda. And they got their hands on it in my kitchen and immediately packed it and took it with them to Uganda because it's so handy with it, the cordless feature for one thing, but also it does a whole lot more than work as a food processor. It also works as a immersion blender and a handheld mixer. I love it for making mayonnaise. I make my own mayonnaise now. There's just no point in my mind in paying for it when I can make it fresh in about a minute. And hey, if we have time here, maybe I'll show you how that works because it's pretty slick. Okay, we have that all chopped in there. So this piece comes off, obviously, you've seen it, and you attach the blender holder or the immersion blender piece. And then this is a rechargeable battery. So super handy, just like all those rechargeable tools out in my husband's shed. Now I have my own and I really do like it. I just haven't been around to use it. So super fun. All right, so we have everything ready here. I'm just gonna leave that in there. Oh, you saw how it was slowing down at the end? Here's why. I'm that girl who's always trying to put too much in. This thing is chock full. It is full of that sliced cabbage. So, all right, well done, food processor. My daughter actually called me because, you know, the thing about living in Africa in the 2020s, even the 2010s, is she call me whenever she wants to on what is it we use WhatsApp. So she can call me whenever she wants, no cost. And anyway, so she was using this and it kept stalling on her and she thought something was wrong with it. Well, nothing was wrong with it. She had dates. She was trying to chop dates, and dates are notoriously hard to chop. Definitely not the best idea for a food processor of any kind. Her husband came home and saw what she was doing, and he said, and he's quite a cook. They are both really quite good cooks, and he's like, yeah, I think the dates are just not a good idea in the food processor. So, okay. So the next step in this recipe is to brown our sausage. And so here's one of my tips I want to give you about buying your sausage for something like this. So it calls for a pound of mild pork sausage. And get this a little closer. I went to the store today. I could pay $5.50 a pound for ground pork, or I could pay $4.99 a pound for mild Italian sausage links. So if you notice what I did there is all I did was take the sausage out of the casings, and the casing is biodegradable. It's not anything gross, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Not like the way they used to make sausage, or probably still do in some parts of Italy. But anyhow, my point is it's very easy to just cut the sausage out and then brown it up and chunk it up just like this to brown it. And you'll save money on your grocery bill with that one. So, so if it says ground pork, you can use your links and just take them out of the link. You know, in the end, whatever is, in my opinion, the most cost effective, as long as it tastes the same, then, you know, that's one easy change up there. So a couple other change ups you could think about for this recipe. If you don't like mushrooms, leave them out. The mushrooms actually act as a filler on this recipe. And so they make the sausage go farther, if that makes sense. they are not necessary to this recipe at all. And you could also add other things. So you could add chopped green pepper, maybe. Might be a yummy thing to add here. So I want to put that out there because there are people in my family that would look at this recipe, see the mushrooms and say, not having it. Just leave them out. Add more sausage if you want. It is not, we're not making a souffle. We're just making cabbage rolls. Okay. So just keep that in mind. So we're burning. I hope we're not burning. We're cooking this up. I lost my thing here. I can't find my little stand for my tablet. I think it's in Ohio. So we're cooking this up for about 5 minutes or so in a nonstick pan. And then we're going to add the onions. So do that here. So you might want to make sure you're using whatever kind of sausage you're buying, that you do have something that's going to chop it up. That's a little easier, better than a wooden spoon. This is called our mix and serve, I want to say, which is kind of a funny name. So our mix and chop has been very popular ever since it came out many, many years ago. Absolutely crazy popular product, but you can't serve with it. You can't spoon up with it. So this thing is similar. It has like a curved edge. I don't know if you can see it there, and will allow you to actually then pick up the food with the same tool. I actually still prefer the mix and chop, and I would be using the mix and chop, but it wasn't in my tool turnaround, and I didn't have time to go hunt it down. Okay, so our sausage is no longer pink. We're going to add the mushrooms, and if you remember, I mentioned mushrooms release a lot of moisture into your food. So this recipe calls for us to cook them down for about 5 minutes. So I'm actually going to set my timer so that I don't do this wrong. I tend to not be very patient. And if you remember, I mentioned a minute ago that the mushrooms act as a filler. So that we want to cook them down, cook that moisture off so that this is not runny. They'll kind of attach themselves to the sausage. So again, as a filler, they're going to make your sausage go further. We actually have another recipe that I may feature in a different week's menu that is similar, where mushrooms are used as a filler. And I remember making it back in the day when I still did live cooking shows. And it was one of those rooms, half the room was like, mushrooms. The other half of the room was like, mushrooms. So we modified the recipe and used ground beef in place of mushrooms, but it was meant to be a meatless, like a meatless Monday kind of recipe. And it was actually quite yummy. So mushrooms do make a great substitute. Or in this case, they're a filler. So our timer is up, and I kind of moved a few things around here while these were cooking. But what I want you to be able to see is that if I do this, there's no water coming down to the bottom of the pan. So let me pull that up so you can see it a little better. Slightly different way here, but prior to this, there would have been water kind of settling in the bottom of the pan. But because we let that moisture cook out, we don't have that anymore. I managed to throw some right on there. Okay, so this is the hard part. The hard part is all done. And all we do now is we're going to add our garlic. And you may have seen my other video, or I think I posted it somewhere, about keeping garlic in a mug. So you don't want to store your garlic or your onions in the refrigerator. They need to stay in a cool, dry place, but not the fridge. That fridge is too cold. If you've had things sprout, that's why. They actually go bad faster in the fridge. So cool, dry place. So my recommendation is if you have a favorite mug with a chip in it, like this one, or maybe a mug that's just really ugly, but you can't throw it away because somebody special gave it to you. We all have one of those, right? Put your garlic in it, put it in your cupboard. And they're doing a very useful job for you, holding your garlic. And That's my best recommendation. All right, so we're just pressing in our garlic, adding our other clove here. Whoops, not that way. Let me turn the heat down on this a little bit too. The garlic press does come with a little tool that'll do what that thing is doing, but I have no clue where mine is. Back in the back of a drawer somewhere, I'm sure. You don't want to put your garlic in too soon because it burns easily. I like to put it in just before I add the liquid. Give it about 15, 30 seconds, depending on how high your heat is. Let it kind of do its thing. And then we're going to add our liquid. So our liquid today, the 14-ounce jar of tomatoes. These are my husband's from the garden last summer. We're running low. I'm always sad when we run out of tomatoes. I did buy tomato sauce. I think he made some, but I didn't know where it was. And honestly, it's so yummy. I don't really know that I will use it for a recipe like this. I'd rather save it for like a pasta sauce or something. Whoops. It's a very old can opener. Try it again. If your can opener, if you have a smooth edge like this and it doesn't work on the first time around, just give it a second twirl. Usually all it means is that the gear mechanism needs a good scrubbing. This thing in here, just as an FYI. All right, we're going to add our tomatoes. We are going to add our tomato sauce. We have some beef broth. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We've got a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. That just makes my heart happy. I love Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire sauce, by the way, is my secret to my chili. I put in about the same amount, about 2 tablespoons into my pot of chili. Just gives it a little extra flavor that is so delicious. Oh, and we need some salt and pepper. I forgot that part. So I'm going to tell you right now, it tells you to put the garlic in sooner than I did. And if you have to follow the recipe exactly as written, then you go right ahead, because there are no recipe police out there. You get to do it the way you want to do it. But I like to wait until the very end. I also am married to an executive chef. So, you know, not that I have someone watching me over the shoulder half the time, but I do. All right, so this is ready. We're just going to add the cabbage. Like so. Add the cabbage. Bring to a boil, reduce to medium low. I'm not going to mix this in. I'm going to lay it, just leave it on top like that and put the lid on, put it down on low and just let it cook down. So it takes about 12 to 15 minutes. So I'm going to just set my timer for that. Google set a timer for 12 minutes. We do have an awesome clock timer if you need one. We also have your phone. Usually won't work. Google is not listening to me, so I think I'll just use my watch. My timer's in the other room. So sad truth is, not sad, just reality. I've been living most of the last 2 years with my mother in 2 states away. And my husband, you may have heard me say he's an executive chef. Well, he's kind of taken over my kitchen. And I can't find things like my mix and chop. My drawers are half empty because for whatever reason, he decided that, you know, I didn't need to have the cheese knife readily available or whatever. So anyway, I have a clock timer. I think I know where it is in the other room, but I'm not going to go dig it out right now. It usually sits right here because I really do usually use it. All right, let me talk to you about the best way to get your beef and chicken stock, and then we'll be done. And I'll just post the picture of this when it's done so you can see it. So you can buy it in the cartons, you can buy it in the cans, but this little thing called Better Than Bouillon will save you so much money in the long run. So this little jar probably runs around $5. Things have gone up since I bought it, so it might be more than that. But this is the equivalent of 38 cups of beef stock. So if you think of your average carton is a quart, that's 4 cups. This would be the equivalent of 9 cartons of beef stock. So that's a huge savings. And it's so easy to do. You just add a teaspoon to a cup of water, mix it in real well, and there is your beef stock. You can get beef, chicken, vegetable. I believe there's now a seafood one. They've really expanded their line. You can find it at the grocery store. I also am able to find it at Costco, possibly at Sam's Club, I would guess, and at BJ's if you're in one of those membership clubs, probably on Amazon. But it's called Better Than Bullion. It is my best tip for saving you money and just having it handy all the time, because this doesn't go bad. If you open a carton of beef stock and you don't use it within a certain amount of time, you use half of it or whatever, it only has a shelf life in your fridge of a week or two. This does not go bad. I mean, I suppose eventually it says best by September of next year, and I'm sure I've had it at least a year or two already. So you just keep it in your fridge, use it as you need it. I have a whole lineup in my fridge of the different varieties. It's one of those tips my husband gave me way before you could find it in the stores. And it is one of my best tips I can share with you, especially if you're trying to cut down on your grocery budget. All right, well, I hope this was helpful to you to watch how this comes together. I hope you'll join me again in my kitchen sometime soon. Thanks for watching.